Iran is a country in the Middle East, with an important geographical position like a crossroads connecting Asia with Europe, and is also located next to the Persian Gulf, which contains the world's leading oil transportation routes. Therefore, Iran's geography and population also have unique characteristics, making this country have significant influence in the region. And not only that, Iran is one of the countries with the most enemies on the planet. Some countries that are hostile to Iran include Saudi Arabia, competition for power and religious differences, Sunni, Shia. Israel, political conflicts. Iran does not recognize Israel. And Israel is concerned about Iran's nuclear program. In the past, Iraq and Iran were fierce rivals in the Iran-Iraq War, 1980 to 1988. Launched by Saddam Hussein. United States, relations have been tense since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Related to Iran's nuclear program and influence. Geography of Iran. Area, Iran is very large, covering an area of about 1.65 million square kilometer. It is one of the largest countries in the Middle East. Iran borders Armenia and Azerbaijan to the northwest, the Caspian Sea to the north, Turkmenistan to the northeast, Afghanistan and Pakistan to the east, the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman to the south, and Turkey and Iraq to the west. Terrain. Iran's terrain is very diverse and complex. There are high mountain ranges such as the Zagros and Alborz that run across the country. And there are also plateaus and large deserts, such as the Dasht-e Salt Desert, and the Dasht-e Hot Desert. Iran has a terrain with many mountain ranges and plateaus. From a defensive perspective, it is indeed great, as it is very difficult for enemies to attack such rugged areas. However, this also makes Iran isolated and difficult for international trade. This complex terrain is sometimes an advantage, but it also makes Iran more isolated, making conflicts with foreign countries more difficult to resolve. Climate. The climate in Iran is quite harsh, mostly arid and semi-desert. Summers are hot as a furnace, while winters in the northern mountains are bitterly cold. Population of Iran. Population, as of 2024. Iran has about 88 million people, which is slightly larger than the population of Germany. Iran's population is mainly young, although the birth rate has recently decreased significantly. Cities. Tehran is the capital and also the largest city, with about 9 million people living in the inner city. If you include the surrounding urban area, the population is up to about 15 million. In addition to Tehran, there are other large cities such as Mashhad, Isfahan, Shiraz, and Tabriz. Ethnicity. There are many ethnic groups in Iran, but the majority are Persian, accounting for about 60 to 65%. There are also Azerbaijanis, Kurds, Lurs, Balochs, and Arabs. The people mainly speak Persian, Farsi. Religion. The majority of Iranians are Shia Muslims, about 90 to 95%. This makes Iran the center of the Shia branch in the world, and is also the reason for their many conflicts with Sunni neighbors, such as Saudi Arabia. The supreme leader of Iran is responsible for outlining and overseeing the general policies of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The supreme leader is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, controls military intelligence and security operations, and has the sole power to declare war. The heads of the judiciary, the national radio and television networks, the commanders of the police and military forces, and 6 of the 12 members of the Revolutionary Guard Council are appointed by the Supreme Leader. Why does Iran have so many enemies? Iran is located in a very valuable position, in the middle of the Middle East, adjacent to both the Caspian Sea to the north and the Persian Gulf to the south. Imagine the Persian Gulf as a golden gate of oil. With the Strait of Hormuz, 1 out of every 5 barrels of oil in the world must pass through here. Therefore, Iran seems to hold the key to open and close this oil faucet, making big countries like the US or neighbors like Saudi Arabia nervous. Every time there is tension, Iran threatens to close the strait, causing oil prices to jump like crazy. Iran's position is very special. Surrounded by friends who are difficult to be close to, Saudi Arabia is always in competition because of religion and power. Iran is Shia, while Saudi Arabia is Sunni. Like two brothers in the same family but always fighting for the throne. Iran and Saudi Arabia always find ways to fight each other by supporting different groups in conflicts such as in Yemen or Syria. Israel is even more tense. Iran always affirms that it is irreconcilable with Israel, and behind it always supports armed groups such as Hezbollah in Lebanon. This makes Israel always on high alert and ready to retaliate. Israel and Iran do not share a border. In fact, the two countries are quite far apart and do not directly border each other. Both Israel and Iran are located in the Middle East. But there are many other countries between them. Between Israel and Iran are other countries such as Iraq, Syria, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia, making the distance between the two capitals, Jerusalem and Tehran, more than 1.500 kilometers. The US of course does not share a common border. But needless to say, since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, the relationship has become like hate at first sight, and has lasted until now. Iran and the US have confronted each other in many situations. From economic sanctions to the assassination of General Qasem Soleimani, making the relationship like fire and water. Iran's geographical location is truly a double-edged sword. It allows Iran to control strategic points such as the Strait of Hormuz, giving them the ability to bargain with the world. On the other hand, this location also makes Iran a thorn in the side of many neighboring countries and even major powers. From the US to Israel, the rich oil resources have become an excuse for other countries to seek to limit Iran's influence. Oil is the cause of conflict. Iran owns a large amount of oil and gas resources. Imagine this country as sitting on a giant black gold mine. It sounds favorable, but everything has a downside. Too many resources become the target of competition from other countries. Oil giants like Saudi Arabia and the UAE do not like Iran having too much influence on the market. So they have taken advantage of their good relations with the US and Europe to isolate Iran. Iran has terrible oil resources. It ranks fourth in the world in terms of oil reserves, with about 158 billion barrels of oil, enough to fill up 1 million supercars. That is why everyone says Iran is rich in resources. Iran is also the second in the world in terms of gas. After Russia, Iran's gas reserves are estimated at 33 trillion cubic meters. If you sell it, you can imagine Iran sitting on a mountain of money. Oil and gas contribute 60 to 70% of export revenue and account for 25% of Iran's GDP. Thus, for every $100 earned, about $25 come from oil. Iran has been under sanctions from the US and the West since 1979. But the most intense period has been from 2012 until now, when the US tightened economic sanctions because of the nuclear program. As a result, Iran's oil exports have dropped sharply, from 2.5 million barrels/day to only about 1 million barrels/day. Sometimes even only a few 100,000 barrels. Iran's economy depends too much on oil, which is like playing put all your eggs in one basket. When oil prices are high, Iran earns a lot of money. But when oil prices fall or are sanctioned, everything is in trouble. For example, when oil prices fell from $100/barrel to only $30/barrel, as in 2016, Iran's income was lost by more than half. About 60% of Iran's economy is in the hands of state-owned enterprises and organizations related to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. These organizations are often opaque, corrupt, and poorly managed, making the economy stay poor but never get rich. Corruption ranking: Iran ranks 150-180 countries in terms of corruption, according to Transparency International. Which is quite dark. This discourages foreign investment and makes it very difficult for domestic private businesses to develop. Why do Iran and Israel hate each other? The story of Iran and Israel hating each other is actually a long and complicated one. But to put it simply, it is like two children in the neighborhood who cannot play together because they are too different. And they often tease and fight with each other about many things. To understand better, let's take a look at the main reasons why these two countries don't like each other. Iran and Israel are like two completely opposite sides. Iran is a Shia Muslim country. But after the Islamic Revolution in 1979, this country turned into a religious state, meaning that everything must be based on religion. Iranian leaders have always considered Israel an enemy, even saying that they want to wipe Israel off the map, because they see Israel as an occupier of Palestinian land. Israel is a Jewish state, established in 1948, and since then has always had to fight to keep its land from surrounding Arab countries, because Iran does not recognize Israel's existence. The two sides can never be close. Israel is concerned about Iran developing nuclear weapons. For Israel, this is scary, because if Iran has nuclear weapons, it is a direct threat. That is why Israel always calls on the world, especially the US, to stop Iran. Israel has even been behind many assassinations of Iranian nuclear scientists, and has also attacked Iran's nuclear facilities to sabotage them. Iran supports armed groups such as Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza. These groups are always against Israel. Iran gives them money and weapons, making Israel always have to be vigilant. Israel wants to push Iran out of the region, and sometimes even attacks Iranian military bases in Syria and Lebanon. This is like pouring oil on the fire, making the two sides hate each other even more. Relations with the US. The US is Israel's #1 ally, while it has been Iran's biggest enemy since the 1979 revolution. The US and Israel have a very close relationship, from economic to military. Every time the US imposes sanctions on Iran, Israel fully supports it. This makes Iran feel even angrier and more hostile towards both Israel and the US. The two countries have confronted each other many times, not only in words but also in actual actions. Israel is accused of airstrikes on Iranian military targets in Syria, while Iran continues to support armed groups against Israel.